Welcome to Evesham Town Centre, which is based in Worcester. And I'm standing next to a statue of a man named Eof. In the year 701, Eof had a vision of the Virgin Mary.
Now I think it's time for us to go and check out for ourselves
The famous Evesham Abbey. So welcome to Evesham Town Centre, which is in Worcester, and I am here to visit a man who's named after this town, Eof. I'm standing next to a statue of a man named Eof. But who is this Eof character? And what on earth has he got to do with this town? Eof was a swineherd. If you don't know what a swineherd is, it's someone who looks after pigs, someone who tends pigs. And as the story goes, in the year 701, Eof, while looking after his pigs, had a vision of the Virgin Mary. He immediately went to his bishop, the Bishop of Worcester, St. Egwin, to report what he saw. Egwin, very intrigued, went to the site himself to investigate and explore what Eof had told him. Miraculously, Egwin too had a vision of the Virgin Mary. And it was on that apparition site that Egwin founded a monastery that later became the famous Evesham Abbey. Before we talk about the Abbey, I would like to have a look at this statue next to me. So this statue that has been erected actually explains the origins of this town. I just want to read for you the inscription at the bottom. And of course we have Eof with his pigs. And what it says is, "Whilst with the swine amongst the trees, I fell at once upon my knees. Up above a great light, our blessed Virgin shining bright, of what I saw."
So that's the statue. Now I think it's time for us to go and check out for ourselves where the site where this great abbey was built. Follow me.
So here we are. This is the famous site where Eof, this simple, humble swineherd looking after his pigs, claims to have had a vision of the Virgin Mary, right here. And as I said, he told his bishop, and his bishop, probably around the years of 701 to 710, founded a monastery here, which later became Evesham Abbey. Evesham Abbey was then the most important, wealthiest of abbeys in the whole of this land. But can you imagine, before the abbey was here, this site was meant to be completely uncultivated, full of brambles and thorns, and of course, this is where Eof was looking after his tender pigs. And then later on, of course, when the abbey did come to this site, it was one of the finest in the whole of Great Britain. So, let's go and check out where the abbey was. I have to say, I am really amazed and captivated by this Eof character. Can you imagine? He comes out here every day, faithful to his work, coming out to tend to his pigs, probably walking through dirt, walking through mud every single day, removing brambles and thorns, whatever is in his path. And in one day, as he claims, he has a vision of the Virgin Mary. Can you imagine that? It was probably the last thing that he expected to see that day. This humble, simple man, going about his business, going about his daily work. And then he has this vision of the Virgin Mary. How beautiful is that? This event reminds me of something I just recently read by Fulton Sheen. And I'll just read it to you. Fulton Sheen is talking about baby Jesus being born on Christmas Day. And he says, only two classes of people found the baby Jesus: the shepherds and the wise men, the simple and the learned, those who knew that they knew nothing, and those that knew that they did not know everything. Only the very simple and the very learned discover God. Isn't that beautiful? And that encapsulates the man that Eof was, a simple man, a man with a pure heart, a man that knew who he was before the eyes of God. Of course, this place became a center of Christian worship and pilgrimage. Many monks living here under the rule of Saint Benedict, many prayers and petitions said here over hundreds of years. But then very famously, in 1534, Henry VIII broke away from Rome, and he became the supreme head of the church here in England. Now, abbeys and monasteries would have reminded people of the power of the Catholic Church. And Henry VIII and his commissioners, they wanted to destroy the monastic system and eliminate any Catholic influence. So as you can imagine, Evesham Abbey was a massive target for Henry. So in 1540, Henry VIII and his commissioners arrived here to Evesham Abbey. And while the monks were in the abbey during evening prayer, they forced their way in. They got the monks and they ejected them. And incredibly, by October of that same year, the majority of the abbey had been completely destroyed. He torn it down. Can you imagine that? But for some bizarre reason, and nobody seems to know why, the bell tower was spared, where it stands today, exactly the way it was. When a lot of people hear of Evesham, they say Evesham is drenched in blood. And that's because a very famous battle took place here in 1256. Simon de Montfort, a very strong political leader in the Kingdom of England at the time, had come to prominence. And amazingly, he kidnapped King Henry III and he kept him prisoner here at Evesham Abbey. King Henry III's son, Prince Edward, came to Evesham looking for his father, looking to rescue his father. And a great battle ensued. It involved 15,000 people right here on this site. Can you imagine that? And apparently 5,000 people lost their lives. And as the story goes, Simon de Montfort, the leader of the rebel barons, was on his horse. He got pulled down from his horse and he got chopped into pieces. And his decapitated head got sent to his wife. I definitely would not have fancied opening the post that day. As I stand here and reflect upon this bell tower, I try and imagine what it must have been like back in 1540 as a Catholic to see this great abbey completely destroyed and all that remains is a bell tower. But if I stood here this day in 1540, seeing the bell tower would actually fill me with hope. And I'll tell you why. It reminds me of the famous happenings in New York, 9/11, when the Twin Towers were completely destroyed. And if you remember, there was a very famous image of firemen lifting the national flag, the American flag, yet despite them being surrounded by devastation and destruction. But this image, this iconic image, acted as a symbol of hope that the people of New York would recover and rebuild, and that they would remember those who lost their lives in such devastating circumstances. And as I stand here and look upon the bell tower, as a Catholic, it's a reminder to me that we would recover and rebuild. You know, as I think about my visit to Evesham Abbey, there's one theme that's very strong in my heart, and maybe it's very strong in your own heart, and that's one of hope. Now, why is hope so important in our lives? Because we live in an age of increasing despair and discouragement. I want to reflect on a book for a moment. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. One of the things he observed was the prisoners who lost hope, lost all hope for the future, lost all hope of ever getting out of Auschwitz, were inevitably the first to die. And he said you could spot them. They would be giving away their cigarettes, giving away their shoes, the things that were so valuable in Auschwitz, they stopped caring about. And it wouldn't be long before they were dead. For example, if a rumor went around the camp that on December 4th, the war was going to end, and people put their hopes in it, but when December 5th came and the war hadn't ended, the death rate on December 5th was disproportionately higher. Why? Because people had given up hope that their situation was ever going to change. Now let's think for a second. What is hope? Because I hear a lot of people saying, I need more faith when they mean hope, or they say, I need more hope when they mean faith. Let's make a distinction between the two. Faith is in the present, but hope is in the future. Faith is based on what God has done in my life and what God has done in the scriptures, whereas hope is based on what God will do in the future. So the same way that God has provided for me in the past, I hope He will do the same for me in the future. But for hope to be real, it has to be based on faith. So ask yourself honestly, do you hope for more in your life? Or in your heart, are you happy to stay the way that you are? Because if you don't desire change, change won't take place. Why? Because God won't interfere with your free will. Do you hope for more for your life? Or in the silence of your heart, you say, this is as good as it's going to get? Because if you don't intensely desire change, change is not possible. You have to reimagine your desire and hopes for the future. Jesus tells us very clearly in the scriptures, ear has not heard and eye has not seen all that is in store for those who love God. Do not resign yourself to your set of circumstances in life. You cannot outdream God with your desires. Saint Therese of Lisieux tells us beautifully, we obtain from God as much as we hope for from Him. And what that means is, God doesn't give to us according to our good works. He provides for us according to our hope. If your situation in life right now is very unstable or maybe really uncertain, then I get it, I totally get it. It can be difficult to hope. But that's exactly when you need to hope. It's easy to hope when everything is going our way and everything is falling into place. But it's in the dark seasons of our life, the uncertain seasons in our life, when we need to put hope into action. I'd like to reflect upon Mary for a second. As you all know, the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary and said, you will conceive a son and you will name him Jesus. And then the angel left. There was no roadmap or any strategy about how this was to come about. All Mary had was her hope. The angel didn't say, yeah, you're going to be homeless, and then there's going to be no room in the inn, and then actually Jesus is going to be born in a stable. No, it didn't hear any of that. Can you imagine the doubt that must have crept into Mary along the way? Is this really the plan of God for the Savior of the world to be born in a stable? Is this really your plan, God? That Jesus is born here, surrounded by animals, with all these smells, with the floor probably caked and soiled in dung? Is this really the plan of God? If she's anything like me, I would have gone into doubt thinking, did I really see an angel that time? Is this really your plan, God? If your set of circumstances right now are causing you to doubt or to lose trust, or if you're lacking hope, then cast your eyes on Mary. She went through it all. She lived in total uncertainty, and she made it through. And so can you. God has not failed you, and He will not fail you. That doesn't mean that life isn't going to test you, because you can be sure that life is definitely going to test you. But the places in your life, in your circumstances, that seem miserable and hopeless, they are not miserable to Him, and they are definitely not hopeless to Him. Hope means that God has a plan. And even if your life doesn't make much sense right now, you can be assured that He's carrying that plan out. Because where you might think God is being absent or silent, that is actually God working in ways that we cannot yet understand or perceive. Hope brings us back to that reality that He is never absent. And although maybe you can't see Him working right now, you can choose to trust that He is. My name is Niall McDonagh, and from everyone here at Shalom World, God bless you all.